Okay, so we need to have a real talk about Palantir. They got 3 challenges, 3 major problems they gotta solve within the next 12 months. Otherwise, something isn't ticking. The one thing I promise you that if you come to this channel to consume Palantir analysis, you're gonna get the good and the bad. And today happens to be a little bit more on the bad side. So the first thing I want to cover here is something that doesn't get covered a lot, despite being a very glaring issue. The net dollar retention of Palantir currently is 107%. That means that for every client that spent $100 last year, this year, on average, this client spent $107. So that's great because clients are spending more money, right? Right. But, and there's a but, you see, the rate at which net dollar retention grows has to do with your industry. If you're in the software business, especially in the SaaS business, software as a service, 107% net dollar retention for a growth company just is not enough. You have to see way more net dollar retention growth. So if Snowflake is giving you 151% net dollar retention and Palantir is giving you 107, it's a huge gap. This gap has to be closed within the next 12 months. And I'm not saying that Palantir has to go to 150% retention. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that net dollar retention is currently moving in the wrong direction. If you go back and you check, over the past few quarters, net dollar retention for Palantir is coming down every single quarter. So we have to start moving in the right direction, which is upwards, and we have to get closer to the 120, 130 net dollar retention, where you have to be to generate more revenue growth. And that revenue growth is the second item I want to talk about here today. Now, the second item has to do with the fact that we're currently at 17% revenue growth, which is not bad at all. But if you look at the clientele growth, that is much higher than 17. If you look at the amount of new clients, you would expect a much higher number than 17% revenue growth. Because you see, the problem is that with this kind of price to sales ratio, you expect to see higher revenue growth for a company like Palantir. If you compare Palantir to Snowflake, again, as a benchmark of sorts, Palantir is growing at 17%, Snowflake is growing at 35%, but they're trading at similar multiples. Why does Palantir deserve this high price to sales multiple, despite the fact that it's trading more like Oracle than it's trading more like Snowflake? Because the high price in the share has to do with potential, has to do with future growth. So what's going on here? Well, let me explain. The reason you see this discrepancy and they have to be closed within the next year is because Palantir is implementing the model of freemium. They want to establish relationships first, monetize later. And that's a solid strategy. But this strategy has to deliver fruits at some point. You can't stay on a freemium basis forever. At some point, the new clients you bring in have to generate revenues. And I believe in the next year, they have to come in. All these new clients that came in over the past year will have to be seen or reflected in their revenue growth over the next 12 months. And in order for Palantir to justify the current price to sales, the current valuation, it has to get closer to Snowflake. Again, not saying it has to go to 35% annual revenue growth, but it definitely has to be in the mid-20s. To justify this current valuation and to showcase to us, the investors, that the freemium get your foot through the door strategy actually works if you give it enough time. Because even after 2 or 3 years of the strategy, we're not seeing an increase in revenues. That means the strategy has to be adjusted. Something isn't ticking. So you always have to be analytical about the things that you are using, right? If you have a strategy and it's not delivering the right results, we're still at 17% revenue growth for a year from now. So that has to be adjusted. Now, item number 3 I want to mention today has to do more with another company, which is called Microsoft. Now, over the past 2 years, I've been banging the drum on Microsoft. And I've been saying, look, the only competition for this company can come from Microsoft. And the reason is that nobody really can compete with Palantir products. But Microsoft does not have to honestly compete, because the whole modus operandi of Microsoft is not to compete with anybody. Is to come into an established market where somebody has a great product, Slack, and take it away. Take it away by bringing an inferior product to the market, by giving that product away for free or through rebates, through other Microsoft stuff, and then wait for the other guys to go out of business. Basically, hey, company X, you see this Palantir product you're using? That's a great product. We have something that's almost as good, but you can have it for free. And you're going to get it for free as long as Palantir is still on the corner waiting to give you theirs. Once Palantir goes away and we take it out of business, then we're going to spike up prices and make you pay for everything you didn't pay for the past few years. That's the whole business model of Microsoft. They've been screwing clients like this, and they've been making lots of money like this. And you see, Microsoft also wraps it in a nice little bow of great support, great engineering, great relationship with Salesforce and CEOs. It's all well documented. And by the way, in business, it's fair. Everything is fair in business and love and in war. And especially in enterprise software, hardball business, totally respect what Microsoft is doing. It's legal, it's moral, and it's the right way to do business. However, why do I think that Microsoft is not going to have it this time? So Microsoft has this thing called Microsoft Fabric. And I'm not downplaying Microsoft Fabric. I think it's a massive problem for Palantir, and it has to be solved within the next 12 months. Because it's not something we can just brush to the side and say, hey, Microsoft Fabric is not relevant. No, that's not the case. I think Palantir, now is the crunch time. Now is the time for them to prove that every single thing we said about the product is true. And let me explain why. The only scenario in which the Microsoft strategy of driving people slowly out of business does not work is the one time where the gap of quality between the Microsoft inferior new product and the superstar in the industry is so big, is so massive, that if any of your competitors is actually using Palantir Foundry or AIP, then you're in big trouble, sir. If the product that Palantir has is so much superior, then no amount of discounts or rebates or great relationship is going to work. That means that the alternative cost of not using the Palantir stuff may cost you your job, or even worse, may cost you your business. In that case, all the schmoozing, all this, hey, I'm going to open up the soda pop next to you and I'm going to give mine away for free until you go out of business, it's not going to work. Simple as that. And I believe Palantir will prove it. But the burden of proof, again, here is on Palantir. They have 12 months to show to the world they're a legitimate player and they're not going to be bullied by Microsoft Fabric. Simple as that. But it has to be addressed. You can't just ignore it and say, well, that's not a real problem. That is a real problem, and a massive one. There's no need to overreact to the great earnings Palantir just had. The S&P 500 inclusion is great. The $20 price tag is great. It's still a long ways away from where we need it to be. It's still very high percentage owned by retail investors, which makes it extremely volatile, which means you have to be careful with any investment, but this one specifically isn't for the faint of heart. If you believe in this company, you have to think long-term, and you have to believe in what I'm saying, that they can solve these challenges as well as 100 different challenges that's going to come up in the next year. If you have that faith, this is how you do it. You slowly dollar cost average into the stock, and you create a variable DCA strategy in which you buy more at certain times, buy less at other times, and create a low average in the stock without gambling, without emotions, and without timing the market. And that is how every single one of my members that's been using this strategy for the past 2 years has a very low cost base despite the stock going from 6 to 40 back to 6 to 7. It doesn't matter. With our system, your average always is going to be low, no matter what happens in the market. Now, if you want to learn how to do this and how to become a better long-term investor as part of it, join us at patreon.com/Tom Nash. We have an amazing community. Would love to see you there. 30 days, money back guarantee. If you don't find value in that, to anyone for any reasons, no questions asked. I'll see you in the next video.